My name is Garrett, and some nights still feel etched into my skin like burns that never fade. It was 3 months ago, a night when the world outside was silent, pressed under that peculiar stillness that only exists before dawn. I hadn't gone looking for anything, just water, maybe a few minutes with my phone to trick sleep into coming back. Instead, I walked straight into a moment that split my life in two. The kitchen light was soft, a muted glow against the darkened windows. And there she was, Celeste, my best friend's mother. She stood by the counter as though she had been waiting, a porcelain cup in her hand, her silk robe gathered loosely at the waist. When our eyes locked, there was no surprise on her face, only a calm, knowing smile, as if she had invited me into something I didn't yet understand. Garrett, she whispered, my name sliding into the quiet like a secret. She lifted her hair and asked me to help tie the sash at her back. A simple request. Ordinary. But when I stepped closer, I realized she didn't need me at all. The knot had never been out of reach. She wanted my hands there, fumbling at silk that suddenly felt like fire under my fingers. Through the reflection in the glass, I caught her gaze. That mirror image told the truth neither of us dared to say. She knew what she was doing, and I knew it too. And still, I tied the sash slowly, deliberately, as though every second was a line being crossed. When she turned and folded herself against me, thanking me in a voice too close to my ear, her body pressed to mine in a way no hug should linger. My arms betrayed me. They pulled her in, held her there. Seconds stretched into something dangerous, something we both understood we shouldn't want, but couldn't push away. That was the moment, the hinge on which everything turned. You could call it weakness, temptation, betrayal, maybe all of it at once. But I need you to ask yourself something before you judge me. Have you ever stood at the edge of a choice you knew could ruin you and still leaned forward into the fall? I did. And nothing after that night was ever the same. I had been living in Donovan's house for only a short while, but it felt like stepping into a life that wasn't mine. Donovan and I had been friends since college, brothers in everything but blood. When I told him I was between apartments, he insisted I take the guest room. Stay as long as you need, he said, promising me the arrangement would be easy. My mom works crazy hours. You'll hardly see her. He had no idea how wrong he was. The house itself had a strange pulse, a mix of warmth and quiet vacancy. The walls carried the weight of family history, yet the air often felt too still, like it was waiting for something to happen. My room was upstairs, across the hall from Donovan's, with a window that overlooked the backyard where the grass grew in patchy lines. At first, I told myself it was temporary, just a landing spot until I found my own place. But the longer I stayed, the more the house began to feel like a stage one where I was playing a role I didn't fully understand. Donovan was everything you'd expect in a best friend, loyal, protective, quick to laugh. He worked long shifts at a restaurant, chasing tips, and saving for a future he talked about like it was just around the corner. To him, home was a pit stop between work and his girlfriend Sarah. He never imagined that while he was gone, another story was quietly unfolding under the same roof. And then there was Celeste. To Donovan, she was simply Mom, the steady presence who had held their family together after his father left. But to me, she became something else entirely. Not immediately, not with intention, but in the way certain people seem to light a room just by standing in it. She carried herself with the elegance of someone who had survived disappointment and learned to build armor from silk and smiles. Her laugh had a crack in it, as though it had once been whole and was now pieced back together. And behind her eyes lived a hunger she probably thought no one could see. I noticed her habits first, small details that became impossible to ignore. The way she made tea at odd hours, pacing lightly through the kitchen, as though her thoughts refused to sleep. The way she dressed for work in sharp skirts and fitted blouses, everything polished and professional, yet always with some detail, a necklace, a shade of lipstick that whispered she hadn't given up on wanting to feel alive. Even her silence had texture. When she sat across the table, sipping coffee, it felt like an entire conversation waiting to break loose. For me, life at Donovan's was supposed to be simple. Days spent scanning apartment listings, sending resumes into the void, scrolling through job boards that seemed more like brick walls than open doors. Nights spent unwinding with Donovan over pizza boxes and video games, the same rituals we'd had since college. But the rhythm was broken every time Celeste entered the room. It wasn't just attraction, it was recognition. She looked at me as if I wasn't just a guest, or her son's friend, or another 20-something trying to figure things out. She looked at me like I was visible in a way the rest of the world kept overlooking. And for someone who had been drifting through his own life, unseen and uncertain, that gaze was a kind of gravity I didn't know how to resist. I kept telling myself it was nothing, a passing thought, a dangerous spark I could smother before it grew. But the truth was already stitched into the fabric of the house. Every glance, every accidental brush of hands in the kitchen, every shared silence at 4 a.m. carried the weight of something that wanted to bloom. We never spoke of it, not directly. Donovan was always around, laughing, planning his weekends, trusting me with his home and his family. To him, nothing was wrong, nothing was shifting. But underneath that easy trust, attention stretched tighter with each day. Celeste and I were circling the same fire, pretending not to feel the heat. And all the while, I wondered how long we could keep pretending. That night in the kitchen should have been forgettable, a moment born of insomnia and chance. Yet it became the spark that refused to burn out. I can still feel the way the quiet pressed in on us, as though the entire world had stopped breathing to watch. She was standing near the window, moonlight slipping over her shoulders. The robe she wore shimmered faintly, like champagne caught in glass. When she asked me to tie the sash, her voice carried a softness that made the air tremble. I knew immediately she could have managed it herself. The knot had never been out of reach. But she wanted me there, closing that final inch of distance. As I stepped behind her, my hands hesitated. Through the darkened glass, our eyes met in reflection. A silent confession passed between us, wordless but undeniable. She wasn't asking for help. She was asking for contact, for proof that she could still draw someone close. My fingers worked slowly, tracing the silk as though time itself had stretched. When she turned, she didn't let go of me. Her arms folded around my shoulders, her breath brushing against my neck. And the hug lingered long enough to stop feeling like gratitude. My heart pounded, a warning and an invitation tangled together. I knew I should step back, but instead my arms answered her call, pulling her closer. Her whisper, "Thank you," was less about the knot and more about something neither of us could name yet. In that embrace, I felt both her loneliness and her power. She was a woman who had spent years being everything for everyone else, and in that moment, she allowed herself to want something only for her. When she finally let go, the kitchen returned to its stillness. But nothing inside me was the same. I left with a glass of water, yet carried something heavier. The knowledge that a boundary had shifted, and pretending otherwise would be a lie. The next morning, I sat at the table while Donovan rattled off his plans for the weekend. I nodded when he asked if I was listening, my throat too tight to speak. Across the room, Celeste entered in a pencil skirt and blouse, the professional armor of a woman ready to face the world. She moved casually, pouring her coffee as if nothing unusual had happened hours earlier. But then her eyes met mine, just for a second. In that single glance, I saw it, she remembered everything, and then, like actors in a play, she carried on with the script of normal life. "Morning, boys," she said, brushing past me. For Donovan, it was nothing. For me, it was everything. Over the next few days, the silence between us grew louder than words. A brush of her arm against mine as she reached for a glass. Fingers grazing when she handed me groceries. Glances held a fraction too long. None of it spoke to anyone else in the room, but for us it was a language of its own, one that said we had already crossed a line and we were only pretending to hold it still. By Thursday, the pretense snapped. Donovan had a late shift, leaving me alone in the house. I told myself I'd use the quiet to work on my laptop, maybe catch up on job applications. But when the front door opened and her voice floated in, "Just me," my body betrayed me. My pulse quickened, my hands shook. We had been alone before, but never for hours. Never without the safety net of interruption. She stepped into the living room, still in her work clothes, shoulders tired, eyes shadowed. "Long day?" I asked, though the words sounded too small. She laughed, but it carried no joy. Her ex-husband had called, she explained, another reminder that their 20 years together had been reduced to paperwork and property. She poured wine into 2 glasses and sat close enough that her presence filled every inch of space between us. She told me she didn't miss him, not the man himself, but The idea of being seen, being cherished. And before I could stop myself, the words slipped out. I see you. She studied me then, truly looked, and something shifted. The air turned charged, heavy with a choice neither of us should make but both of us wanted. When she touched my face, her thumb skimming my cheek, it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, wind roaring in my ears. She whispered that it was madness, that I was too young, that I was her son's friend. Every reason was true, but none of them pushed her away. The moment could have ended there safe, unresolved. But instead we lingered, suspended in a silence so fragile it could break into anything. Regret, ruin, or desire. My phone buzzed with Donovan's text, warning he'd be home in an hour, and the spell cracked. She rose quickly, smoothing her skirt, hiding herself behind the role of mother again. At the doorway, she paused without turning back. Her voice was quiet, confessional. That morning with the robe, I didn't need help. A breath, then, I just wanted to feel your hands on me. And then she was gone, leaving me with a truth I couldn't unknow. The morning after her confession, the world felt tilted. I sat at breakfast, pretending to follow Donovan's chatter about the game at Tyler's place, nodding at the right times, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. Every bite of toast, every sip of coffee tasted like the memory of Celeste pressed against me, whispering a truth she should never have admitted. When she entered the kitchen in her work clothes, hair neat, blouse tucked, heels clicking, the room changed. Donovan greeted her like always. She responded with her usual morning, nothing out of place. But as she reached past me for the coffee pot, her hand brushed my shoulder, feather light. The kind of touch that meant nothing to him but left me reeling. Our eyes met only for a second, but it was enough to remind me that last night hadn't been a dream. For 3 days, we orbited each other carefully, pretending. To anyone else, life in that house was normal, but beneath the surface, a quiet fire smoldered. Each passing graze of her hand, each glance caught across the table, each moment of silence when we were alone in the same room, but said nothing. They were bricks building something secret, something dangerous. Thursday night tore down the illusion. Donovan was working late, leaving the house to just the two of us for the first time since that morning. I tried to convince myself I would spend the night alone with my laptop. But when the front door opened and she called just me, my pulse betrayed me. The sound of her heels on the hardwood floor felt like a countdown. She appeared in the doorway, still dressed from work, but her eyes told the truth, her clothes tried to hide. Exhaustion, vulnerability, and something deeper loneliness sharpened into desire. She laughed about her ex-husband calling, dividing up property like 20 years of marriage had been nothing more than a ledger. Her voice cracked when she admitted she didn't miss him. Not the man, but the feeling of being wanted, of being seen. Without thinking, I said, I see you. The words slipped out before I could stop them, and the effect was instant. She studied me, gaze steady, searching. Then, slowly, she touched my face, tracing the line of my cheekbone with her thumb. The weight of that touch was unbearable. The air itself seemed to hum, charged with possibility and danger. This is crazy, she whispered, her lips close enough that I could feel her breath. You're Donovan's friend. 24, I corrected softly, as if the number might absolve me. But the truth was, nothing could. We both knew it. She pulled back just as my phone buzzed. Donovan's text. He'd be home in an hour. The spell broke. She rose abruptly, smoothing her skirt, reclaiming her role as mother, caretaker, the respectable woman in control. But at the doorway she hesitated. Her voice trembled. That morning with the robe, I didn't need help. I just wanted to feel your hands on me. Even if only for a second. And then she was gone, leaving me paralyzed on the couch, drowning in the gravity of her confession. That night should have scared me straight, pushed me back into safe silence. Instead, it dragged me deeper. Hours later, when my phone buzzed again, the name on the screen made my heart leap. An unknown number, but I knew instantly. It's me. Got your number from Donovan's emergency contacts. Delete this after. I should have ignored it. Should have erased it and gone to sleep. But my thumbs betrayed me. Can't stop thinking about what you said. Her response came quickly. I shouldn't have said it, but I meant it. and just like that, we crossed another invisible line. The texts began harmlessly, books she was reading, places I wanted to visit, but with each message, the conversation edged closer to the cliff. Soon we were asking when the other had first noticed, really noticed. I admitted it was the morning she sang along to the radio while making coffee, unaware of my gaze. She confessed it had been the day I moved in, when I helped with chores without being asked, when I actually listened. "Do you know how rare that is?" she typed. Listening, that was the key. She wasn't just flirting. She was unraveling, piece by piece, letting me glimpse the woman hidden beneath all the armor. The hours vanished. We texted until 3 in the morning, neither willing to let go of the thread between us. When I finally fell asleep, phone still in my hand, I knew we had stepped into a world we couldn't easily escape. The days that followed were both agony and bliss. Every touch, every glance, every deleted message stitched us together, tighter. And yet, every second was a risk. Sunday night, Donovan left to spend the night at his girlfriend's place. Celeste and I sat on opposite ends of the couch, a mile apart and an inch away. She broke the silence first. "Tea?" I followed her into the kitchen. The ritual was ordinary, but her hands trembled as she filled the kettle. "Don't," I whispered. Her eyes glistened. "If you say what you're about to say, we can't take it back." "Maybe I don't want to take it back." Tears welled as she confessed she was supposed to be the adult, the responsible one. I told her we were just two adults who couldn't stop thinking about each other. The kettle shrieked, but the louder sound was our hearts beating out of rhythm. I moved closer, close enough to feel her warmth, close enough to cross the line we had been circling for weeks. "Tell me to leave," I said. Her lips parted. "I can't." When I kissed her, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, inevitable, the culmination of every stolen glance and unspoken word. She tasted like peppermint tea and the terrifying promise of no return. And though she whispered we would regret it, her arms around my neck told me otherwise. That night, everything changed. After that kiss in the kitchen, the rules of the house rewrote themselves. Nothing looked the same. The walls that had once kept me safe now felt like conspirators, bearing witness to a secret we couldn't let anyone see. Every footstep upstairs, every door creak, every buzz of a phone carried the threat of discovery. We didn't plan it, but within days we had built a code. Short messages that seemed harmless to anyone else became our lifeline. Thinking of you meant Donovan was home, but she missed me. How was your day? Meant the coast was clear and I could come find her. A single period, just a dot was our warning. Stop everything. Danger close. It was a secret language only we understood, proof that our world existed within the cracks of Donovan's. The hours when he was gone turned into our sanctuary. I'd wait the agreed 5 minutes after hearing his car leave before making my way downstairs. Sometimes she was already waiting, standing by the stove, mask gone, her eyes soft and unguarded. Other times I'd find her curled on the couch, flipping through channels, but watching the door for me. The second we were alone, everything shifted. The careful smiles dropped. The distance vanished. One morning when Donovan left early for his shift, I found her in the kitchen with sunlight spilling through the blinds. She didn't say a word, just looked up, and her entire face changed, like a flower opening all at once. She crossed the room and kissed me before I could even speak. That day we didn't rush. We lingered in stolen hours, drinking coffee between kisses. Her hand in my hair as though holding me kept her anchored. But the danger never let us forget itself. Wednesday night, Donovan was supposed to be with Sarah until midnight. At 10, Celeste and I were tangled on the couch, her legs draped across mine, my hands working circles into her tired feet, when the front door swung open. We shot apart as if burned. Celeste grabbed the nearest magazine, flipping it open with feigned interest. I fumbled for my phone, pretending to scroll. Donovan's voice broke the tension. "Didn't expect anyone to be up." "Couldn't sleep," Celeste answered, steady as stone. "Garrett was keeping me company." He nodded, unconcerned. "Cool. Sarah and I had a fight. I'm going to crash." He headed upstairs but paused halfway. "Mom, you've seemed happier lately." "It's nice." His words landed like a stone in my chest. He didn't know, but he noticed something. After his door shut, silence crushed us. "That was too close," she whispered, her voice trembling. Later that night, my phone buzzed. Can't stop shaking. Not from fear, from wanting you. Her honesty undid me. I typed back with hands shaking just as hard. Me too. The next day was torture. Donovan declared it Family Day, dragging the three of us downtown, laughing, talking, making us pose for photos like we were whole. But under the table at lunch, her foot brushed mine, and when he went to the bathroom, she leaned in close, her voice a blade against my ear. I hate pretending. That night when the house was finally ours again, she pulled me to her the second the door closed. "This pretending is killing me," she said against my mouth, and I answered with everything I had. We grew reckless. A kiss in the laundry room while Donovan was in the garage, her hand brushing mine under the breakfast table, hidden from his view. One afternoon, she pulled me into the pantry while he was in the living room, and we kissed like teenagers stealing minutes, every heartbeat pounding out the risk. The thrill was intoxicating. Each narrow escape only bound us tighter together. It wasn't just about desire anymore. It was about survival, about needing each other to withstand the unbearable tension of secrecy. But the closer we drew, the thinner the line became. Every risk tasted sweeter, but it also meant the fall was coming. We both felt it, hanging in the air like the charge before a storm. And yet, neither of us stepped back. We couldn't. We were already too far gone. The danger didn't scare us anymore, it thrilled us. And when danger starts to feel like fuel, you know you've already lost control. It was always a matter of time. We both knew it, though neither of us dared say it out loud. Secrets this heavy don't stay buried. They claw their way to the surface. It happened on a Saturday afternoon, in the room we had sworn never to cross into together. Her bedroom. Until then, we'd kept to safer corners. The couch, the kitchen, the laundry room. Places where the pretense of normalcy could still shield us if the door suddenly opened. But that day, Donovan was gone for what he promised would be a long shift, and Celeste pulled me into her room as though the walls themselves could protect us. The air was different in their warmer, more dangerous. The sheets smelled faintly of lavender, the closet door half open revealing slivers of her life, heels lined in neat rows, dresses that carried stories I would never know. She stood in front of me, her blouse already half unbuttoned, her eyes wide with equal parts terror and need. "I can't keep pretending," she whispered. "Not in here, not anymore." Her words broke something inside me. I kissed her, and it was nothing like the stolen moments we'd clung to before. This wasn't a taste, it was surrender. For 2 hours we lay tangled together, not crossing every line but close enough that the world outside ceased to exist. I held her as though I could keep time from moving forward, as though the door would never open. But time always moves. The sound of a car door slammed us back into reality. We scrambled, her wrapping herself in a sheet, me fumbling for my shirt. Then came the sound no one in love should ever hear, a key in the front door when it shouldn't be there. The bedroom door swung open, and there he was, Donovan. My brother in every way that mattered. His eyes landed on us. Confusion flashing first, then recognition. And finally something far darker. Rage betrayal. The death of trust. He didn't shout at first. That was the worst part. His voice came out flat, controlled, a blade honed sharp. "My mother?" Celeste tried to speak, but he cut her off with a look that could have shattered glass. His gaze locked on me, and I had no words left. Every explanation I rehearsed died in my throat. "How long?" he asked, each syllable a hammer. I couldn't lie. 6 weeks. The number hung in the air like smoke, suffocating us all. Donovan's laugh was jagged, ugly. 6 weeks of eating at my table, sleeping under my roof, calling me brother while you... He couldn't finish. The sentence collapsed under its own weight. Celeste stepped forward, reaching for him, her voice cracking. "Donovan, please, listen." "Don't!" he snapped, stepping back. "Don't you dare touch me!" The silence that followed was worse than any yelling could have been. He shook his head, a gesture of finality. "Both of you. Out." "Now, Donovan, this is my house," Celeste whispered, desperate. "I don't care." I can't look at you. Either of you? The slam of the front door after he stormed out echoed like a gunshot through the house. Tires squealed, and then there was only silence. We sat in her room, wrapped in the ruins of what we'd done. The sheet that covered her might as well have been an ocean between us. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. What do we do now? I asked, though I already knew there was no answer. She met my eyes, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Now we face the consequences. The next days bled together in a haze of fallout. Donovan didn't answer my calls. My texts went unread. The friendship I thought unbreakable had shattered, jagged pieces cutting into me every time I remembered the look in his eyes. Celeste and I spoke in whispers, in hurried texts, but even when she wrote, "I don't regret loving you," the words felt heavy with ash. Because love had burned everything down. We had been playing with fire in a house made of paper, and now there was nothing left but smoke and silence. And somewhere in that smoke was Donovan's silence, louder than any scream, haunting both of us like a ghost we couldn't banish. The days after Donovan walked in on us blurred into one long shadow. I moved into a cheap motel on the edge of town, the kind of place that smelled of cigarettes and forgotten promises. The wallpaper peeled in corners, the bedspread was rough against my skin, and the silence was heavier than anything I had ever known. Celeste stayed in the house, but it no longer felt like home to her. Donovan packed a bag and left to stay with Sarah, refusing to look at either of us. He didn't answer her calls any more than he answered mine. 24 years of friendship between us, decades of motherhood between them, all severed in one heartbeat. For 2 weeks, Celeste and I didn't meet, though we texted constantly. "I miss you," she wrote at 3 in the morning. "This isn't worth losing your son," I typed back, even though each word sliced me open. "I already lost him," she replied. When she finally asked to see me, we chose a cafe far from our usual circles. I arrived first, and when she walked through the door, my chest ached. She looked older, as if grief had carved new lines overnight. The light that used to flicker in her eyes was dimmed. We sat across from each other, hands wrapped around lukewarm mugs. "How are you?" I asked, though the answer was already written in her face. "I've been better," she admitted, her smile paper-thin. "You?" "Same." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers were cool, trembling. "I don't regret it," she said, voice breaking. "I know what we lost. I know how much pain we caused, but I don't regret loving you." Tears pricked my eyes. "He'll forgive you eventually." "You're his mother." "Maybe," she whispered, "but he'll never forgive you." And I knew she was right. Whatever bond Donovan and I had built since we were boys, it was gone. Ashes scattered to the wind. Even if he spoke to me again, it would never be the same. A few days later, Donovan showed up at my motel room. He didn't knock so much as slam his fist against the door until I opened. He sat in the single chair, his jaw tight. 6 weeks, he said, spitting the number like it was poison. 6 weeks of lies under my roof. I tried to speak, but he cut me off. "I came here to tell you something. She's selling the house. She's leaving." My heart seized. Leaving? Going back to Oregon, closer to her sister. End of the month. It felt like the ground shifted beneath me. "Did she ask you to tell me?" "No, she doesn't know I'm here. But you should know what your love cost her. Her home. Her son. Everything he left without waiting for my answer." The door closed, and I sat there, crushed under the weight of his words. That night I called her. "Is it true? You're leaving?" "Yep," she whispered. "I can't live in that house anymore." Every room is a reminder. "So what, you just run?" What else can I do, Garrett? Stay and watch my son hate me? Watch you break under his silence? "I can't, then let me come with you." She was silent for a long moment. "Be realistic." "I am. We love each other. The damage is already done. Ending us won't heal him. Let me come." Her sob echoed through the line. "I'm scared." "So am I said. "But I'm more scared of losing you." 2 weeks later, I helped her pack. Donovan didn't come to say goodbye. We loaded her car in silence, and when she looked back at the house one final time, I saw the pain crack her composure. "I'm giving up everything for this," she said quietly. "So am I." We drove north 6 hours to a city where no one knew our names. It wasn't easy. Guilt followed us like a shadow. Some nights she cried for Donovan, some nights I did too. But slowly, painfully, we built something new. A small apartment, new jobs, a life that was ours. We could hold hands in public. She could laugh without glancing over her shoulder. 3 months later, Donovan texted her for the first time. "I'm not ready to forgive you. Maybe someday. Not now." It wasn't much, but it was a crack in the door we thought was sealed shut. A year has passed. Celeste and I are still together. Some days it feels worth every sacrifice, the mornings I wake with her in my arm, the way she still makes tea at midnight, the laughter we share in quiet corners. Other days, when she stares at her phone hoping for a message from her son, I wonder if we made the worst mistake of our lives. Love isn't always neat or noble. Sometimes it destroys as much as it creates. But even knowing the cost, I can't bring myself to regret it. Because in her arms, in her eyes, I finally feel seen. And maybe someday, Donovan will forgive us. Until then, we carry the weight of what we did, and we keep choosing each other anyway. Even if our love is built on ashes, it's still ours. Hat was my story. It isn't simple, it isn't clean, and it sure isn't something I can wrap in a bow and call happily ever after. Love doesn't always arrive the way we expect. Sometimes it comes when it shouldn't, from someone we never imagined, and it costs more than we're ready to pay. So I want to ask you, what would you have done in my place? If you found yourself standing on that same edge, knowing one step forward could shatter everything you held dear, would you walk away? Or would you risk it all like we did? Have you ever carried a secret love? Something you couldn't share without losing the people you care about? Tell me in the comments. Your stories matter. They remind us we're not alone in the impossible choices we face. And if this story struck something inside you, if it made you think or stirred up memories of your own, don't just leave quietly. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who understands what it means to choose love in the middle of chaos, and subscribe for more. Because the truth is, we all have chapters we hide, stories we whisper only in the dark, and sometimes the most broken places are where the most powerful love begins. This was mine. What's yours?